Hey, I think it's live. How are you? This is Sharon Person. I am founder of the Global Success Institute and TCI. And I'm coming to you today. I'm progressing on my book, which is called Your Ultimate Self. And I'm thinking of calling it Rediscovering Your Ultimate Self, because I truly believe it's not a discovery, it's a rediscovery. It's a reconnection with who we are at our core. And the book is progressing beautifully, and there's just some messages in it that I think are so important for all of us to share and to have and to hold on to. And I just want to get it to you. So this is called the Self-Esteem Triad, or the Triad to Self-Esteem. Thank you for joining me. And I trust you get value out of it. I know some of our students are starting to get into the parenting niche. I know one student on our professional coach group is actually delivering this Friday. So this is mainly for you. I can't recall your name, I'm sorry, but I thought I'd just jump on and just deliver it. And you can just use it. Just please use this, share it, get it out as much as you can. So we're going to talk about, if I had time, I would have done a diagram. So there's a triad. Thank you for your excitement. There's a triad of what needs to be present for us to have solid self-esteem. One of the constants that's coming up all the time, it's Kathy, thank you, that's coming up all the time is this feeling of lack of self-worth, the I'm not enoughness, that thing inside that says, I'm not enough, I can't be enough, I'm not going to be good enough, I'm not going to be capable enough. Whatever that enoughness is missing. It's an epidemic of what's missing within so many people. And for all the goals we set, truly where we live in terms of our standards and our self-esteem is absolutely shaping what we're going to achieve. It's not our goals. It's what is within us that we're tapping into. And it's not what's within us that we make, it's what within us that we reconnect with. That's what this is about. It's a reconnection. It's a journey back to our congruent selves, our whole selves. And this triad for self-esteem is absolutely vital. Now, if we get it when we're kids, we're golden. Setting goals and achieving goals is not even a thing. For everybody else, that's pretty well everybody else on the planet, there's some healing work that needs to be done. And we're not going to be healing our pasts. We're going to be healing and claiming ourselves. That's what this is about. So if you're a parent and you're wondering, how do I be more effective as a parent, which I know that comes up all the time. And I always say the caveat, I'm not a parent, but this stuff works for every human being on the planet. So surely it must work just if the human being is shorter. I can't see the difference. I can't sense the difference. And I coach teenagers and it's working great with them. And they're feeling such a connection to themselves, a reconnection to themselves. That's what this is. So I'm going to walk you through this triad to self-esteem, or triad of self-esteem. I haven't quite got the name yet. I'm just wanting to, I'm just reading a post. I'll come back to your question, Grace, because it's gone through the feed. There's lots of comments coming. I want to keep the flow going, but I've seen your comment. I'll come through and answer it in my own comment once we've done this. So thank you for your comment. I appreciate it. I do know a little bit out of your past, and I know how much work you've done on yourself, and you're an inspiration, and I want to congratulate you on getting married yesterday. I think it's fantastic. So this triad to self-esteem, it's made up of three vital ingredients that we, when we were children, need to be given to us by our parents. I call them the magical big people, because sometimes they were caretakers, sometimes they were foster parents. However it was done, the magical big people, needed to have provided this to us because we were literally dependent upon them. You can see my dog in the background helping himself. And if we weren't given this, and I can say I've never met anybody who was, then as adults, we must do the healing work for ourselves and give this to ourselves. So there's this huge movement in the world saying, we've got to have more self-esteem, believe in yourself, go into a big state and believe in yourself. big fan of Tony Robbins events. I get into a peak state and man, I'm going, how come so many people at the end of that, life just starts happening again the way it did before? And it's because the peak state, or us going, I'm so determined this time, it's going to be different this time, can get us so far. But underneath, at the core, this triad hasn't been put in place. So the old habits, the old behaviors, the old choices, the old relationships, they're just going to sneak up back on us. They have to, because the foundation stones haven't been put in place yet. And I can tell you now, and you'll probably relate to this when I share it with you, most people don't have these foundation stones in place. They don't have them. They've never had them. They have no relationship with them. And my journey to discover these within me and to claim them and to live them and to have relationships where I insist on them being present has meant I've been able to be more vulnerable, closer to people, people are able to be closer to me. Not everybody. Here's the thing. I now don't have people in my life close to me or who think they're close to me who don't have this triad in place or who aren't working on this triad. It's now what I require in terms of the standards I have for myself. So what is this triad for self-esteem? The triad is built up on 3 core elements. And I won't be able to draw the triangle and point at the same time. So foundation stone number 1 is that our boundaries are in place for ourselves and for and with others. So respected boundaries is the first foundation stone. The second foundation stone is we know what our needs are, we know how to meet them, and we're healthy enough to be able to meet them for others. So it's a self and others component all the way through. And the third element, the foundation stone that must be in place, is the emotional context or our emotional selves. Our ability to tap into emotions that are appropriate to the time, appropriate to the context, and appropriate to the situation, and enable others to do the same as well. So those 3 foundation stones are critical, and any one of those not in place is going to lead to a self-esteem that's very dented. And most people don't have any of them in place and don't even know what they are or how to meet those needs or have those boundaries or have that emotional experience. And what happens is they're wondering why they feel bad about themselves, why they're not achieving their goals, why things aren't happening for them, what's wrong with me, why aren't I enough? You know, one day aisle, one day aisle, one day aisle, but the one day aisle is built on the goals aren't coming true until the foundation stones are in place. And we may have moments where we break through, where our relationship feels amazing, or we meet someone, it's like, this is it. But if the foundation stones never come into play, we're literally, and this blew me away when I figured it out, going to be attracting people into our lives who have the same gaps in their foundation stones. So they're as flawed as our own triad is the flaws we're going to attract in our relationships. So that just blew me away, and I wonder how that sits with you. This thought that, okay, this relationship's going to be different. This time it's going to be different. This is the one. Everything's changed now. And we go out with this best intention. And I get that. I lived my 20s with this intention, but nothing changed because the foundation stones were never put in place. And without those critical foundation stones, we're going to keep being walking wounded, going out and making connections with people who are the same level of walking wounded. And how many times do we hear that someone's outgrown their partner or they're ready to move on from their partner, and you look at it, it's because they started working on the foundation stones, so their aspirations are a little different, how they're inspired is a little different, what they want to achieve has become a little different, what they expect of themselves has kind of expanded as they take on the responsibility of these foundation stones, and their partner's going, I don't want you to change, you're scaring me, stop that. I can't tell you how many, it's mainly husbands, but I'll say spouses, how many spouses will say to their spouse, I'll say husband and wife because it's weird saying spouse to spouse, how many husbands say to their wives, I don't want you studying with TCI, I don't want you to change, or have you checked them out yet? I found a bad review. You know, forget the 3,000 great reviews. I found a bad review. There's a really negative article about them. You should avoid them. And what the spouse is really saying is, I don't know how to fulfill me. I need you to remind me I'm okay, because I can't do that for myself. And if you change, I might not be able to have me met. I might start feeling the pain I actually feel. I'm terrified of you changing, because if you change, if you grow, if you go away, if you pull away, if you learn cool stuff about you, you'll be on to me. And you'll see me for how flawed I am. And I'm terrified of that. So it's never, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, or my heart. It's none of that. It is always, I'm terrified that if you strip away the veneer, I can't live or cope with the pain that I feel. And I don't know what to do about it. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to get rid of the pain. So I'll just keep burying it. I'll just keep burying it. I'll just keep burying it. And I'll expect everybody in my tribe around me to do the same thing. Let's not rock this boat. Let's not do anything to shatter this delusion that we're okay. And polite sameness sets in. I call it the rot. This polite sameness sets in. The politeness of, we'll be okay, we'll get through. But foundation stones are never put in place, because this veneer of bullshit goes over the top. And is the journey easy? No. But is the alternative hard? Yes. It's so tough living that veneer, living that mask. So I'm going to walk you through the Triad. There's a lot more to this. Oh my gosh, there's so much to this. But I have shared other videos. I'll keep doing that. Obviously, the book's coming soon. I'm doing great with that. I just want to give you this one piece of the puzzle. So hopefully it resonates with you. You can connect with it. And you can start playing with it and using it immediately in your own families, with yourselves. So it's not the goal you set out there that is determining your life. It is the goals you set in here. That is the first golden rule when it comes to this triad of self-esteem. If you want to feel great about yourself, and I'm sure everybody does, it's almost like a setup question. Who wants to feel better about themselves? Me. Well, of course we do. We want to feel better about ourselves. We're not going to achieve feeling better by achieving a goal. We won't feel better by setting a goal. We won't feel better by pursuing a goal. None of that leads us to feel good about ourselves. What we must do is set some goals, 3 goals within ourselves. The triad to self-esteem is where the goals must be set. And as I said, it's boundaries, it's needs, and it's emotions. Those 3 are going to determine the level, the extent, the growth in our self-esteem. So if we didn't get that as a child, and I've never met anybody who has been, we need to do it for ourselves. It wasn't met when we were dependent on others, but now we're dependent on ourselves, so we can do this. So let's look a little more closely at this triad. Thank you for all your great comments. I really appreciate it, and I'm so glad that this resonates with you. I consider it one of the most, if not the most important message I've ever brought to our community. So please feel free to share this, hit like, share it. Just share it with your friends or wherever in groups. I am not protective of this information. I want everybody to have it. So here we go, the triad, or the 3 foundation stones. The first one is around our boundaries. Our boundaries are like invisible force fields. It's what's okay by us. It's not the 6 core needs, Lynn. It's completely different to any work like that. Stay with me. So the first is boundaries. It's an invisible force field around us about what's okay and what's not okay. So some people have been taught to go into placator mode or people-pleasing mode. And pretty well everything is okay. They even go further sometimes. They become walking doormats and everything's okay. It's like there's no boundary there where it says stop, no further. We must work on this first foundation stone urgently for our self-esteem. To reclaim us, the us that's already there, the I amness that is us, to live consciously, we must claim this. So this first is boundaries. It's what is okay with us in a conversation, what is okay with us physically, what is okay with us sexually, what is okay with us in terms of our possessions and our material world, What are our rules and boundaries around those 4 criteria? And then there's the invisible boundaries. What is okay emotionally to happen here? What am I comfortable with or not comfortable with? Now, here's the thing, and I won't be going to in this live, but the book goes into it, and we're going to do a stack of work on it together, obviously in our community. How do you know the answer to this? If you've never been taught no, and you've never been taught it's okay to have healthy boundaries because your tribe or your magical big people are too busy making sure their boundaries, their anger boundaries were the ones you had to attend to. You got so good at attending to the outside world, we forget how to, and we forget we can attend to our inner world. Does that resonate with you? I did a training 2 weeks ago, and I asked this question: who here was grown up hypersensitive to how big people were behaving around them? And every single person put their hand up in the room. Every single person. Couldn't believe it. And we didn't get into it at the time because it wasn't appropriate training for it. But just think about that. It's a small sample. It's not scientific. But I'm pretty sure everywhere I go, it's going to be the same answer. Who was raised to be hypersensitive to the magical big people? And that their boundaries and what they wanted was far more significant than what you, little you, cared about or worried about. So an invisible boundary is what worries you, and is that respected? And for most of us, the answer is no. For most of us, the answer is no. So there's boundaries is foundation stone number 1. The second one is getting our needs met. Knowing what our needs are. Most people don't know their needs, but they're very good. We're very good, many of us, at knowing what other people need. And see if you resonate with this. You can go into a room, you immediately sense who's uptight, who's relaxed, who's fun, who's anxious, who's angry, and how to make them happy. Most of us are very good at that. And that's because we've been raised to take care of big other people's needs. We've been raised to be guardians of the big people's needs. So if, for example, I'm trying to think of an example for me when I grew up. One of my parents had a thing around ego and always being right, could never be wrong, would have died rather than admitted they were wrong. That was one of their needs. So in that environment, being raised in that environment, I couldn't get my need to be right met. I couldn't get my need to express my difference of opinion met. And I wonder if you could relate to something like that. It might not be exactly that, but what is it for you if you relate to this? So in an environment where mistakes were banned, one person only, the patriarch, could be right, everybody else had to be wrong or kowtow or agree, in that environment growing up, we're going to respond a different way. And my way was, my needs aren't as significant as other people's. And I think in some ways I've been fortunate, speaking from my own self, just to give you an example, because I'm the example I have. Hello. I overcame that particular issue quite early, like in my 30s, but there are other needs that my magical big people wanted met. So their needs around insecurity or being put first, or their needs around time being, I was secondary in terms of time compared, I heard a lot. I'm too busy, I'm too tired, I don't have the energy. So I grew up with those needs always being supplicant to somebody else. And I wonder how you relate to that. So our second foundation stone for this triad is to know what our needs are. Now, I'll give you some context around this, some content, but again, this class isn't really the place for that because I'm mindful I'd end up going for like 3 hours, but that one of the crucial needs is to be seen as the one we are. So one of my very clear needs with all of my relationships that are healthy relationships, I have some family relationships that aren't as healthy, but I have many people, I'm very fortunate, I have 6 or 7 people where the relationship is my need is stated and I would expect them to do the same. So for example, I'm in a conversation with someone, hey Steve, and someone who's in my inner, my tribe, my actual new tribe, and I share something that's to me quite vulnerable and it's not acknowledged. I only have relationships now where I get to say, hang on, you need to acknowledge it. It's important to me that I feel validated here. I know my need is to be validated when I share something that makes me feel vulnerable. And I am very clear it needs to be met for this relationship to maintain its level of intimacy and trust. And because I'm so clear about that's just one example. There are many in the book. I've got like 30 different needs listed, but that need is so crucial. So I wonder if you have that you're seen for the one you are, you state how you feel about that, you get your need for validation met for the one you are without being reframed, corrected, positive spoken, whatever. It's just validated for what it is. That is the most healing, loving, intimate, vulnerable, special thing someone in your life can do for you. And similarly, that you can do for someone else. The third foundation stone is our emotions. And this one gets really sticky and really messy for too many people. So many people raised with emotions shut down, only allowed to cry, only allowed to feel fear, only allowed to be happy, Pollyanna-ish, only allowed to show determination, not able to show the full range of emotions when they're occurring. For some people, they're just shut down and then don't express any emotions, and they arrive walking robots. And it's heartbreaking. Yeah, Lynn just said happy but not too happy. So in many households, fear is okay, sadness is banned, anger is banned, and sexuality is banned. They tend to be the four that go together. You can be fearful, you can't be sad, you can't be mad, and you can't be sexy. They tend to be what is a generalization for many families. It isn't the same for everybody, and again, the limits of the Facebook Live. So in this context, we need to, as adults, find a way. Yeah, a few of you are saying you were suppressed around this too. Please keep the comments going. I'm doing my best to read them as they come through the feed. We must find a way to reconnect with our true emotions. And I can tell you how you can tell if you're a bit messed up in this area. Enough of the positive flakery, you're perfect the way you are. You know if you feel great the way you are. You know if you feel joyful every single day for no good reason, just for being the one you are. And if you don't feel that, this is messy. One of these three, two of these three, or three of these three is not working for you, and you need to do some work to claim it. And positive thinking ain't gonna do it. It just, yeah, I feel great. It's just not enough. We must do the healing work. So the ways you know this needs some work. There are certain emotions you eschew, you stay away from. You're uncomfortable with certain emotions. You don't express them or don't feel comfortable around other people expressing them. You consider vulnerability a weakness. You have trouble with intimacy or letting people get in. Or you're the flip side and everybody gets in emotionally and you're all over the place with your emotions. You cry easily, you overwhelm easily, you confuse easily, you express dismay way too easily. So polar opposites of the same problem. They are just ways you were encouraged to express yourself growing up, and the polar opposite was discouraged. Neither is healthy. Just because they're opposite to each other doesn't make them healthy. We got to do the work to get to an emotionally healthy place. And sometimes I'll give you a great example of this. It might stay in the book. I might edit it out, so I'll put it here because I'm worried I'm going to hit delete. The number of times I'll run a coach training, it's every time. And students will say, I'm in a very emotionally charged and intimate conversation with someone in the audience, and it's just what they're going through is amazing. Thank you, Lynn, I appreciate that. And what they're sharing is just, to them, it's just the life of heartbreak. It's just what they're sharing is a heartbreaking moment. And I'm with them, but I'm not down in the ditch with them, because I have to be out of the ditch so I can lend a hand to pull them out. So people ask me, and you probably know what I'm going to say, how do you stay detached? I find myself getting emotional. I get caught up. Let me help you here. That is an example of someone who's been raised, shut down emotionally, and was never allowed to, or inconsistently allowed to, experience the full range of their emotions, to own them, to have them, own them, label them, experience them, and exit them. You were told, stop that crying. That's enough crying. Get out of my sight. Nothing to cry about. There's nothing to be upset about. Any of those scripts or narratives Now, when you meet someone else being emotional, you will feel emotionally sucked in because it's okay to feel emotion for someone else, but it's not okay to feel it for yourself. So it's unhealthy. And you know, people in my audience, you might relate to this, say, oh, but I just feel them so much. No, you're not feeling them so much. You're feeling the hurt and the pain of your emotions being denied, and you don't know how to connect with them. So there are many ways to tell. It could be that you're very automatic in your responses, and there's a lack of emotional sincerity or depth to your response. They're the indicators for the emotions. So these 3 foundation stones are where we need to dive. And if we set goals to reclaim, to learn what our boundaries are for us, to reclaim them for us and respect them in others and learn what that language is. Number 2, we learn what our needs are, and they're all different for all of us, and we learn how to express them and get those needs met, and we do the same for others respectfully. What a gift. If we learn which emotions we shut down and begin reclaiming them, and we encourage others to experience their emotions honestly and as real and raw as is accurate for them in the context. If we do those 3 in terms of goal setting, the outside tends to take care of itself. There's still things we've got to do. We've got to run the household, have a job. I get there's stuff to do. But in terms of the big goals of life, these are the big goals of life. These are the life-changing goals of life. Because by reclaiming our self-esteem, I'll give you an indication of where this is going. We reclaim our self-esteem. We don't need the mask anymore that I feel like I'm a fake that a lot of people have. We don't need to hide anymore because we've reclaimed aspects of us that we've suppressed, repressed, denied, or dismissed. We get to reclaim them. And in reclaiming them, our self-esteem expands, so our need for the masks diminish. We are living closer and more crucially to our congruent selves, to the true I amness that is us. And I'll give you some indications of knowing you're doing this. So we know we're doing this when we've done some work on our boundaries, our needs and emotions. We're starting to feel stronger in situations that previously may have intimidated us. A wonderful saying I heard the other day, and I don't know who to attribute to, it's this: people who are easily intimidated don't have self-esteem. And the people who intimidate you are indications of where you haven't grown yet. It's not an indication of them, it's an indication of you. So that's a wonderful check-in. So most people these days, I'd be hard-pressed to be intimidated except for by physical violence. Any other situation, I'm going to be okay with it. How are you with different people? Do you find, hey Brian, do you find yourself intimidated, shut down, avoiding? What is it that worries you about people? The idea, your benchmark is you're good with all of it. You're good with all of them. You enjoy all of them. All of them. It's just like, man, bring it on. This is fascinating because you're secure with your healthy boundaries. You're getting your needs met and you can recognize what needs they have to get met. Emotionally, you feel secure and stable. So anything they do isn't going to rock your boat or upset your apple cart too much. You're good. And so whatever's happening, the level of intimidation that's out there just goes down, goes down, goes down because your self-esteem is going up. Now, the next indication that this is happening, and I love this, is your relationships begin to get deeper. May I suggest as a first step, a lot less texts and a lot more phone calls. Get on the phone to people who are close to you and you're close to. I went through a bit of a tough week last week, and a couple of friends were just on the phone. They just picked up the phone. They heard the news, just got on the phone. Hey, I'm here for you. How can I help? Rather than this text business, it's like that personal. Just phone the person. Hiding behind text is hiding from life. And I'm just a really big fan when I hear something's happened, good, bad, or important, significant. I'm going to phone that person and make that connection real to them. I'm not going to hide behind a text. I have time for those I care for. And you do that, that is a really good indication that you're working on this, because you recognize, because a lot of people say, I don't want to invade your space. If you have healthy boundaries, you know that's not an invasion, that's a gift. You know you're secure in yourself, and you're coming in to say, hey, I'm here beside you, not standing back, because I don't know where my boundaries are, so I don't know where yours are, so I better not come in any close to anything vulnerable. No, break that down. Be next to the person when they're vulnerable. Be with them, beside them, standing tall with them, protecting them. I spent 8 days doing that for someone. It was such a gift to be able to do it for them. And you just don't blink in those moments. And that's when you know how much you are growing and able to give. And your capacity for giving just goes through the roof. So that's another indicator. A third indicator is living the I amness traits that there's lots of indications. The book's full of them, and I'm just so excited about it. But I want to share these I amness traits. These are core to knowing you've reclaimed your triad. You become happy just because. That's like the golden, that's it. I'm just in love right now with this message, and I'm connecting deeply with this message. It's occurred to me that there is nothing going to happen that will solve my problems. There's nothing that's going to happen that's going to suddenly make me happy. There's nothing that can happen in terms of goals out there that are going to make me feel great in here. All of that makes the mask feel good. But if I need any of that to feel good about myself, then in here needs some work. Do you get that? I hope I've expressed that well. Just try it on. That what we're doing out there is the stuff that keeps us thinking the mask is intact and we're looking good. But to me, when I hit the goal, I want to be reasonably neutral about its achievement. It's like, yeah, that's progressed me in my finances, that's progressed me in my wealth, that's progressed me in my health and fitness, that's got me. They're very rational to me. They're not emotionally charged. And that doesn't mean to say they're empty me at all. It's very important that I maintain the temple, and it's very important that the temple can be maintained. So I'm into that. But the internal goals is where the game is played. So the less you need out there to be awesome, to feel great in here, that is a major indication that you've done the triad work in here. The other indications of I amness, there's more playfulness, there's more natural joy, there's spontaneity, curiosity. Let me talk about curiosity. I usually talk about spontaneity, but I'm going to talk about curiosity. And I often talk about vulnerability, but today my theme is going to be curiosity. I can tell when I meet someone how their triad is by their lack of curiosity or the extent of their curiosity. Someone who lacks curiosity does not trust themselves. So they're so worried about how they're going to be perceived by others. They're too scared to ask questions because they don't know what questions are going to reveal secrets about them. So people will be onto them that they're fake. So people who lack curiosity are telling me they lack internal boundaries. They don't know where they begin and they don't know where they end and others begin. They're terrified of somehow mixing up the boundaries. They're terrified of being perceived as making a mistake, because mistakes are just death to anyone with poor boundaries. So the people I see who are kind of dull-eyed and not showing curiosity and just just basic questions. How are you? How are you doing? And really wanting the answer, like really wanting the answer, that's a rare individual. That to me is somebody who's done the work on their boundaries, their needs and their emotions. They are solid in who they are, and so they have tons of space and confidence and energy for you. But someone who doesn't have this in place, they can't show that much interest in you because they're so self-conscious of themselves. They're so worried about what's going in for them, and they're putting so much energy into making sure they're not upsetting anybody, or they're not being perceived badly, or no one's seeing any flaws. They don't have any energy for curiosity. So curiosity is a major benchmark of the work that you've done. Your curiosity goes up every time you take care of the internal bank, every time you put in some effort into your boundaries and taking care of your own needs, and every time you take care of your emotional needs, and every time you respect somebody else's boundaries or take the time to learn what they are, and every time you take the time to discover what someone's needs are, and every time you take care to discover what is their emotional energy, where do they live emotionally, every time you do that for self and others, your capacity for curiosity has to go up. But most people aren't asking anybody questions. Yeah, the basic question, how do you need me to be to support you through this? It's like as rare as, I'm going to say hen's teeth to be a cliche. Or what about this? How can I best support you right now? Or what is it you need from me right now? Or I'm just doing around the needs for support. But let's move on to needs for champion. You've just succeeded in something that's fantastic and remarkable, and I want to congratulate you full on. What would really make you feel that I was championing you? Would it be flowers? Would it be a bottle of wine? Would it be taking you to dinner? What is it that I can do so you just feel this is fantastic? And the moment they tell you, you just bank that away and you do that for them every single time. You know, one of my favorite things is being taken to lunch. I love it. So few people ask. And if we take the time, how do you like to experience it? What do you like to experience? Conscious curiosity, Paul. I love that. If we make the effort to discover this about people, we're meeting needs for people, and our relationships, it is Elsa. For Elsa, it's tea for both of us. We're taking care of relationships, and they know how to take care of us. And the level of nurturing and intimacy and safety and trust and vulnerability is going up. And then the ultimate benchmark to know that this has all been taken care of is the quality of your relationships. Having relationships where people care about you as the one you are, who aren't trying to change you, they're into you the way you are. They're going to give you feedback. And hopefully you've got a team of champions who give you the feedback the way it is. Oh my gosh, I don't have enough people like that in my life. I just love that. But you need people in your life who are going to champion you first and be there beside you and want to protect you and keep you safe and have sorry, I just had low power mode come up. Who want to keep you safe, who are going to fight for you, defend you, protect you, and you're going to do the same for other people. And that is the ultimate benchmark. And I've got a chapter I end. I'm doing, it's called I can't remember that. It's something like the 12 guideposts, but it's not guideposts. And the 12th one is about, well, how do we build these reciprocal relationships? Because the love, the care, and the respect must be reciprocal. It must be two-way. So I wanted to share with you the triad. The triad, as we said, is boundaries, needs, emotions. The extent to which we take care of these for ourselves and others will determine this extent of our self-esteem. The more our self-esteem goes up, the easier it is to achieve the goals, but the less they matter. The more our ability to achieve our goals goes up, the less intimidated we are by life and those around us. The ultimate of all of this is to know, I can handle what happens. I can handle it. What's going to happen, I can handle. That is the ultimate measure of all of this. So I trust this has been valuable. Thank you so much for joining, and I trust you got value. Please let me know. Post if you got value. Share it if you got value. Put it into groups, into wherever around the world where this message is wanted. Don't put it where it's needed. Put it where it's wanted. We're not here to evangelistically help anybody who doesn't want it. Just take it to the places where it's welcome message, and let's really help people with these foundation stones, and let's help ourselves with these foundation stones. I'm really looking forward to a lot more conversations in our community around the world where this conversation, this narrative is the one that's taking place. Tell me less about your goals and tell me more about your internal goals. I don't want to hear about out there. I want to hear about out there. I think you know what I mean. I want to know about what are you taking care of in here. Are you taking care of nurturing and growing you? That's where the answers lie. Every single day is an expression of the extent to which we do this. No goal, and I've achieved every material goal and more than I ever could have dreamt of in this lifetime. It's ridiculous. And I can tell you now, having done that, none of that helped me with my self-esteem. All of it helped me protect my masks. All of it, all the money, all the wealth, the real estate, all of it has got nothing to do with me feeling in here. The joy I feel is because of the goals I set in here. And it's been a 4-year journey, really full on to me. And that's my invitation to you, that the next few years It's about not healing your past, not living in the future, but healing the you that is you right now. That's my gift for you. I really trust you take this journey with me. All right, see ya.